There's a neurological reason why you feel that rush when the screen says, "Purchase confirmed." And it's not a metaphor. Your brain is literally releasing the same chemical substance that a cocaine user feels when using the drug. In the next 18 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why you're not buying things, you're buying dopamine. Before you think, another video making me feel guilty about buying those sneakers I didn't need, stop. This isn't about judgment. It's about understanding what's happening in your brain when you click checkout, because when you understand the mechanism, you finally stop sabotaging yourself. And look, if you've tried controlling your spending with spreadsheets, apps, New Year's resolutions and nothing worked, the problem was never your willpower. It's that you were trying to fight against a 200,000-year-old neurological system with an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to show you first what happens in your brain when you buy something. Then, why this system that was supposed to help us survive became a perfect trap for financial collapse. And at the end, the most disturbing insight, why knowing all this might not be enough to change your behavior, and what to do with this information. Picture this, you're scrolling Instagram at 11 p.m. An ad appears for that product you saw last week. You hesitate. But there's a discount. Today only. You click. Add to cart. Your fingers hover over the "Complete Purchase" button. At this exact moment, there's a region in your brain called the nucleus accumbens that's starting to light up like a Christmas tree. It's releasing dopamine, the neurotransmitter of desire, anticipation, the hunt. And here's the detail that changes everything: this dopamine is not released when you receive the product. It's released now. In the anticipation. In the possibility. Dopamine is not the happiness molecule. That's the biggest myth about it. Dopamine is the molecule of seeking. Of promise. Of what if. When you're about to buy something, your brain isn't processing, "I'm going to have this product." It's processing, "something good is about to happen." And neurologically? This is indistinguishable from what happens in the brain of someone about to use cocaine, or heroin, or sit at a poker table. A 2007 Stanford University study placed people in an MRI machine and showed them products they could buy. The nucleus accumbens fired exactly the same way it fires in drug users when they see their paraphernalia. Same structures. Same chemistry. Same neurological promise of reward. But there's a second player in this story, the prefrontal cortex, specifically the insula, the region that processes pain, including social and financial pain. When you see the price of something, the insula activates. It's saying, "This hurts." It's literally the sensation of loss. And here begins the neural war. Nucleus accumbens screaming, "Buy it, it'll be amazing," insula screaming, "No, it'll hurt, you'll regret it." And who wins this war depends on factors that go far beyond your conscious willpower. It depends on how much sleep you got that night. How much stress you're carrying. Whether you just received bad news. How many times you've already depleted your inhibitory control capacity that day. And this is where it gets disturbing. Because companies know this. They're not trying to sell you products. They're trying to hack your dopamine system. Every element of an e-commerce site is designed to maximize that dopamine release and minimize the pain of the insula. The countdown, only 3 units left. This increases urgency, which intensifies dopamine. Free shipping above a certain amount, this reduces the perception of loss, silencing the insula. Photos of happy people using the product, your mirror neurons fire, making you feel that happiness in advance. And the worst part, payment ease. One click. Facial recognition. You don't even need to type the card number. Why? Because each friction in the purchase process gives time for the insula to wake up and scream, "Stop." But here's what really separates an occasional purchase from a destructive pattern, the tolerance cycle. You know this concept from drugs, right? The more you use, the more you need to feel the same effect. The exact same thing happens with shopping. Your brain adapts. That first dopamine rush when you bought that handbag? Intense. The 10th handbag? Smaller. Much smaller. And unconsciously, without you realizing, you start seeking bigger purchases, more frequent, more financially risky, just to feel that same initial intensity. That's why you know someone who started buying one t-shirt a month and 3 years later has 6 maxed out credit cards buying things they don't even take out of the box. It's not lack of character. It's neuroadaptation. Let me tell you about a financial therapy patient. I'll call her Marina. Marina earned well. Was intelligent, had a master's degree, planned everything in her professional life. But had $47,000 in credit card debt. She described her purchases as blackouts. She literally couldn't remember the decision process. She'd leave work stressed, open her phone, and wake up to purchase confirmation notifications. When we started investigating, we discovered a pattern. All purchases happened after interactions with her mother. Every call where her mother criticized her choices was followed, on average 90 minutes later, by an online purchase. What was happening? Marina's brain was using shopping as emotional regulation. The dopamine from purchase anticipation was literally anesthetizing the emotional pain of maternal rejection. And she didn't even know it. This brings us to a fundamental concept in financial psychology: money scripts. These are unconscious beliefs about money that you absorbed before age 7, mainly by observing how your parents related to money. And these scripts operate outside your consciousness, but control your decisions. There are 4 main ones. Money avoidance: money is the root of all evil, rich people are bad. Money worship: more money would solve all my problems. Money status: my worth as a person is determined by what I have. And money vigilance: you can never let your guard down with money. And here's what nobody tells you: when you have a money status script, for example, I am what I own, buying isn't about the object. It's about validating your own existence. That dopamine discharge isn't just coming from product anticipation. It's coming from the neurological promise of, I'll finally feel valuable. And there's more. Your dopamine system didn't evolve to handle credit cards. It evolved 200,000 years ago to make you hunt antelopes. When you chased prey, dopamine kept you motivated during the hunt. When you captured it, you had a small explosion of opioids, the reward. And then the system reset. But modern shopping breaks this cycle in 3 devastating ways. First, the reward is instantaneous. You don't need to chase the antelope for 3 days. You click and done. Second, you never feel the pain of loss in a concrete way. Digital money is abstract. Your primitive brain doesn't register, I gave 200 hours of work for this. It just feels, I got something. Third, there's no satiety. In the savannah, you killed the antelope, ate until you couldn't anymore, and your body forced you to stop. With shopping, there's no biological limit. You can shop indefinitely until you literally destroy your financial life. But not everyone develops shopping compulsion, right? So what makes some people more vulnerable? 3 main factors. First, trauma history. If you grew up in financial scarcity, your brain developed hypervigilance for opportunities. That discount triggers a survival response: get it now because it might not be there later. Second, baseline dopamine deficits. If you have ADHD, depression, or simply genetics that naturally produce fewer dopamine receptors, you'll seek compensation. And shopping is one of the most accessible and socially acceptable ways to quickly increase dopamine. Third, what researchers call low prefrontal cortex activation. Translating, if you have less natural inhibitory control, whether from genetics, chronic burnout, or excessive social media use that trains your brain for instant gratification, you simply have less neural ammunition to win the war against the nucleus accumbens. And here's the part that makes me question everything about traditional financial education: knowledge isn't enough. You can know everything I just explained and still, at 11 p.m. on a Thursday after an exhausting day, click Complete Purchase on that product you don't need. Why? Because you're not fighting against lack of information. You're fighting against a neurological system that evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over future consequences. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part, is the last region to mature in the brain and the first to fail under stress. While your dopamine system is primitive, powerful, and perfectly preserved since we were hominids in Africa. It's an unequal fight by evolutionary design. So what actually works? It's not willpower. It's decision architecture. It's you using knowledge of how your brain works to create friction at the right moments. An example, deleting saved payment information. Seems small, but having to get up, grab your wallet, type 16 numbers, this gives 90 seconds for your prefrontal cortex to wake up. Creating a 24-hour buffer for any purchase over $100. This isn't about control. It's about giving time for anticipation dopamine to naturally decrease. Because here's the secret, the desire to buy is most intense in the first minutes. If you can delay the decision, the intensity drops dramatically. You don't need to defeat the desire. You just need to survive it until it naturally weakens. But there's a deeper level, and this is where financial therapy differs from financial education. You need to identify your specific money script and what's really behind the purchases. Marina, the patient I mentioned? When she finally connected the purchases with the pain of maternal rejection, something changed. It wasn't magical. She didn't stop shopping immediately. But for the first time, she could pause. She could feel the impulse and recognize, this isn't about the handbag. It's about trying to fill the void my mother left. And in that pause, in that recognition, she had choice. Before, it was automatic. Now, it was conscious. And consciousness doesn't guarantee change, but it's the only place where change is possible. And here's the most important insight of this entire video, you won't cure your dopamine system. It will continue responding to anticipation of rewards. Neuroscience doesn't free you from the system, it gives you visibility over it. And with visibility, you can create strategies. You can choose where to direct this system. Because dopamine doesn't discriminate. It fires for purchases, but also fires for progress on goals, for social connection, for creating something. If you're using shopping to regulate emotion, you need other emotional regulation tools. If you're shopping to validate status, you need to work on the money script that tells you you are what you own. The problem was never you being weak or undisciplined. The problem is you're trying to solve a neurological problem with a behavioral solution. So let me summarize what matters. Your brain treats shopping like cocaine because biologically, it's the same mechanism. Companies know this and deliberately exploit it. You can develop tolerance and need bigger doses. And knowledge alone isn't enough. You need decision architecture that respects how your brain actually works, not how you wish it worked. It's not about morality. It's about neurobiology applied to real life. If this video made you recognize yourself in some pattern, leave a like, not because I need the engagement, but because it signals to YouTube that there are people interested in understanding the psychology behind money, not just investment tips. And if you want to understand another money script that's silently destroying your finances, I made a video about why you feel guilty when you have money, and how your family programmed you for it, that's right here. Worth every minute.